Well, if that's the case, let's call the special council meeting for the Antioch City Council to order. I will ask the city clerk for a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Wilson?
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe?
Here.
Councilmember Okerchuk?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Motz?
I'm here.
Mayor Wright?
Here.
All present.
I would ask if we could have an American flag put up. If you please all join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America.
And to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to our city manager, Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor Wright and members of the City Council. I'm going to go over the protocols that we've established for our Zoom meetings so that the public that's listening in can be aware of them. In order to comply with Governor Newsom's executive order and the county health officer's order requiring individuals to shelter in place and exercise social distancing, the city has established a protocol utilizing technology to deliver tonight's meeting. The meeting will be televised on Comcast Channel 24 and AT&T Channel 99. It will also be live streamed at www.antiochca.gov. We're utilizing Zoom in order for the City Council and staff to establish social distancing and staying at home protocols. The governor's executive order permits some rules of the Brown Act to be suspended or modified. As such, the city will not be offering a public location for public comments, but instead will be allowing the public to comment in any of the following ways. One, by filling out a speaker card located at city-council-meetings/live/. The 350-word limit has been placed on speaker cards in order to stay within the 3-minute time limit per speaker. Also, by emailing the city clerk prior to or during the meeting at cityclerk@ci.antioch.ca.us. The city clerk or his designee will read your comment into the record at the appropriate time during the meeting. We're making every effort to receive and read public comments during the time designated during the meeting. It's advised that online speaker cards will be filled out in advance or at the beginning of the meeting to ensure that they are received in a timely manner and able to be read during the public comment portion of the meeting or agenda item. Or third, by dialing 925-776-3057 during the meeting. 8 lines have been established for the purpose of the public calling into the dial-in number. Please dial in immediately prior to this item so your call may be fed into the audio system to be heard. Speaker rules established by the mayor will determine the amount of time for each speaker on each item. You may be put on hold until it is your turn to speak. For council and city staff using Zoom, please mute your microphones when not speaking and use the raise your hand function so Mayor Wright will know when you want to speak. Staff, please turn off your cameras unless speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Are there any public comments on unagendized items?
There are no comments on unagendized items.
Very good. Thank you. We will then move on to item number 1, removal of Planning Commissioner Ken Turnage. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, members of the City Council. This item tonight will be presented by City Attorney Thomas Lloyd Smith.
Well, if you send a speaker card, that's
you have background noise, but I think you hear Arnie. But
I think Arnie needs to mute his mic, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, normally that's what that means.
But so this item, obviously on the removal of Planning Commissioner Ken Turnage, I just wanted to, I was thinking about how best to assist the council tonight. I think the first one is to just talk briefly. As you know, the legal standard required to remove a commissioner is that a majority vote of the city council. So city commission members serve at the pleasure of the city council, and they are able to be removed by a majority vote. The reason city council members obviously remove them is because the power of the public comes through the elected official, and then the elected official appoints and approves the appointment. Tonight, the issue that comes up around whether or not to remove the planning commissioner, there's, like I said, I was thinking quite a bit about how best to assist the city council, and I think the best way that I can do that is answer targeted questions. But I did want to mention something that came up in the process of viewing communications that have gone back and forth. I did see some communications that asked about the possibility of censure as an additional option to removal. And censure, I looked up and briefly, and it's an official rebuke chastising the actions of a public official, and takes the form usually of a resolution. Now, I haven't found that censure has been used in the city of Antioch, and I'm still doing research on it. But I wanted to make mention of it to you because I know that you want to be available of all the options that are available to you. So that is one option that's there as well. The recommended action tonight is based on, and Mayor Wright will follow up on this, but Mayor Wright has already met with this commissioner and requested his resignation. And so that's why the recommended action tonight was removal. But I want to make sure that you're aware of all your options, because I'm also aware that Planning Commissioner Ken Turnage is going to speak tonight, and so you'll be listening to public comment along the way to try to make up your mind about what the best course is to chart on the way forward. So that being said, I'll pass it to Mayor Wright.
Thank you. We are here on this item with deliberation for some comments that were made on social media that have come to light. And so we will hold off on our comments as council until we have public comment. And so we have Ken Turnage, I believe, is ready to join us and make his public comment. And then we will go to public comments in general, and then this item will come before council. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, were you referring to me?
We're waiting on, hopefully, Ken Turnage is in the queue.
Okay, yeah, and following that, I do have phone calls on hold, and then we'll turn it over to Nikki Mastay. We have some 92 emails to be read, so you may want to consider a time limit on those. That's up to you, sir.
Very good. I'd like to hear from Kenny Turnage first.
Hello? Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sean, is that you?
It is.
Okay, because you're not doing anything on TV.
Are we, City Manager, are we live on Channel 24?
Yes, my understanding we are. There may be a delay but yes, we are live is my understanding.
Oh, okay, there it goes. Now, okay, I'm going to turn the TV down.
Very good. And we'll turn it over to Kenny Turnage.
To the mayor and council, after many years of service to the city in both the private and public sectors, it is disheartening that you are considering removing me from the Planning Commission due to a personal opinion that I posted on my personal Facebook page. My personal opinion had nothing to do with the city or my position on the Planning Commission. So to try to somehow link them or create a nexus to further your political agendas is shameful. My personal opinion was offered in an attempt to spark a debate, like I have done many times before. It is based on the theory of ecological balance, which is science. Yes, I do understand that it is a difficult topic, and thus I prefaced it by stating that if people are unable to handle an alternative opinion, to not read any further. The idea of letting nature run its course was practiced by Sweden, and at first the World Health Organization was strictly against it. However, as of yesterday, the World Health Organization says we should learn from Sweden. Ironic, isn't it? This virus is targeting sectors of the world. I did not decide these sectors or create this virus. I merely spoke on what could potentially happen to those sectors, plus others, including myself. Yes, my analogies in hindsight could have been different to make the same point. For that, I am sorry, but hindsight is 20/20. Being removed from the Planning Commission because my opinion is not liked or agreed with is not a fair reason to be removed. In fact, in a country where we value free speech, it's unconscionable. It sends the message that only like-minded people can serve this city. That, in my opinion, is a very dangerous road for this council to go down, and everyone in this city should be very concerned. Having it viewed as offensive speech, then targeting me with repercussions for this is a direct violation of my First Amendment rights and should not happen under our Constitution. At this time, I would like to make a formal records request of all documents that pertain to this matter to include, but not limited to, emails, text messages, recorded phone conversations, etc., between and amongst city council members and city staff related to my personal post and development of this agenda, and the subsequent recommendation to remove me from this position. The fact that during a council meeting, a non-agendized item was discussed openly is a violation of the Brown Act. So yes, you may not like me expressing an opinion you do not like, but you have violated the law. If you're going to punish someone for having an opinion other than yours, then our constitutional republic is going to die. I would like to say that at some point, it would be nice if certain council members stopped race baiting to further their political agendas. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Please hold yourself to at least the modicum of the standard you expect of the volunteers such as myself who are willing to try and help this city. Otherwise, I fear there is little hope for its future. In closing, it's hard to believe all of you have come to my house when I have opened my home at my own expense to do fundraisers for the elderly, our youth, and other at-risk demographics. Now, publicly, you are taking these actions when you personally know me better. It's nice to see that opportunity lives here, as long as you share the council's opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Turnage. We have 92 emails. I am going to ask for a consensus that we reduce the time limit from 3 minutes down to 1 minute and ask for a consensus from the council.
I'm fine with that.
Councilmember Ogerchuk is okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Councilmember Thorpe is okay?
I think I'm on mute. I'm fine with that.
Councilmember Wilson's okay with that. Mayor Pro Tem Motz?
I prefer to be at 2 minutes, but being that there's that many comments or public comments, I'll agree to that.
Okay. We're going to limit the time limit down to 1 minute, and I will turn it over to our city manager to, is Nikki Mastay going to read those?
Actually, we'll take the I have two calls on hold, and we'll take those first, and then turn it over to Nikki to read the email that we received, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, our first speaker will be Leslie May. Leslie, you are online now.
We're going to limit it down to 1 minute, and I will turn it over to our city manager to
turn down your TV. Let's turn your audio down off your TV or the internet, whatever you have. We're getting feedback on the delay. Are you ready to speak now? Okay.
Hello. My name is Leslie May, and I'm a 68-year young woman who has always worked to support my needs. I have birth defects. I've had serious orthopedic surgery.
We cannot hear her.
And it's gotten worse as I age, but I've always been a productive member of society. I still work. I never look for an easy way out, even for simply. Mr. Turnage, second coronavirus remarks about the stages, seniors, and elderly population are unfathomable. His personal beliefs and prejudices do not give him a right to say we would lose many elderly, but this is the way of the world. No, this is not the way of the world. We are not casualties for war, dispensable products, sacrificial lambs, less than, or any other negative connotation she's alluded to. We are the original offspring of all pioneers of the lands of this nation. Many of us have served in the military to protect the very land and people who enjoy it now, whether young or old. To cut my statement short, you have no business ever holding an office elected or appointed in any jurisdiction in the United States of America. And I am demanding that the City Council fire you, remove you from the position you hold as Planning Commission Chairman. I also hold a position of Commissioner and Co-Chair of the Contra Costa Mental Health Commission, and I would never make a statement about any of the constituents in the district of which I serve. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Mental Health Commission. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. It just shows the kind of statements you made, shows the callousness of your character and spirit. I saw your Facebook post from one of your friends who put it on Facebook, so it's no behind the scenes thing.
Leslie, thank you. Your time is up.
I'm sorry. We have our next speaker will be Gary Walker. Okay, Gary, you ready? Okay, you go ahead and begin.
Good evening. My name is Gary Walker Robert, and I just wanted to say that I am logging on today to speak up on this item, but I first and foremost want to commend you for the homeless advocacy that you're doing and the actions that you're making. I've been following it. I think it's pretty amazing, and it's I'm a little embarrassed that I'm calling in tonight on something that is negatively reflecting our city instead of positively paralleling with what you've all been doing. So first and foremost, I just want to say that I listened to Ken and I heard his speech, and I was hoping to hear a little bit more remorse, especially for the communities of homeless and also the elderly. I did hear a little bit about the elderly, but I also wanted to hear about the homeless people that he totally was just rejecting in his comments. I wasn't able to read the Facebook post. but I did see it on social media, and I did see Councilwoman on news last night, and I think that those were great representations, the news last night of our city. And also I read the letter that the mayor had asked him to resign, and I think that's powerful. The mayor was also involved with appointing him to this commission. So I really think that, the call to action 210 was loud and clear to represent the city of Antioch and its population. And I agree with the last caller, and I just want to take a moment to say that I do agree. I heard about censorship as well. But,
thank you, Gary.
After listening to him today,
Gary, thank you.
This is the right way to go, and I do think you should continue on the path of, removing him, because you did ask him to resign, and we're sending a message. Our words speak volumes at a time like this.
Okay,
Gary, thank you.
Your time is up, Gary. I'm going to be taking you off.
Facebook, Instagram, media, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to.
Gary, I'm sorry I had to take you off. You exceeded the 1 minute that they have allowed. So, if you just, one minute for comments. So, thank you very much, sir. Bye-bye. Okay, turn it over now to our Administrative Services Director, Vicki Robinson, to read the emails or comments that we received.
Good evening, Council. First comment is from Mary Dunrose. Dear Antioch City Manager and City Clerk, Antioch Chairman of Planning Commission Ken Turnage. The second needs to be removed from all city leadership positions for his lack of empathy, understanding, discrimination against senior citizens, and sociopathic worldviews. This is a person who helps promote senior housing, is fair to seniors. He thinks all seniors should be dead. He is not impartial. He promotes discrimination, is a high risk, high liability, Section 1983 lawsuit case waiting to happen. His Nazi-like coronavirus response ideology, we would lose many elderly, that would reduce burdens in Social Security, healthcare costs, make jobs available, and free up housing. His Hitler death wish for seniors type belief system is without compassion, humanity, violates civil rights, and accordingly, K. Turnage should never hold any sort of leadership position in any organization in our great state. I respectfully request immediate removal or forced resignation for this abomination of a human being from Antioch's leadership position. Greatly appreciate removal of Ken Turnage II from any city leadership position. Stay well, stay healthy. Warm regards. Next is from Sal Sobrante. Mayor and City Council members, I have known Ken Turnage since I joined a community service organization in 2014. He was one of the most active and go-to members of the club. If our club needed or decided to do a project, Ken was in the middle of it, making it happen. Our club purchased a large TV for the senior center. Thought they were going to put it up. Nope, had to get Ken to do it. Work on the Historical Society building, run the 4th of July parade, organize a fundraiser for another foundation, raise money, and help set up the middle school athletic programs. Ken was involved in all of them. In 2015, Ken was named Citizen of the Year Most Impact. As president of our club, led us to do more and more for his community, Antioch. This year, our club put over $20,000 to rebuild Antioch's Little League fields. This project was organized and run by Ken Turnage II. Recently, Ken on his own has been getting groups of business people to work with the city to develop a better way to entice business to come to our community. I know this man, I respect this man. This man is my friend and I am proud of it. I believe Monica, Joy, and Lamar view him as a threat if he gets elected to the city council, and that is the only reason Monica, Joy, and Lamar have rallied all of their contacts across the nation to write their comments about someone they do not know in order to force you to vote to unseat a planning commissioner who puts Antioch first. I do not think you will listen since your minds are already made up, and God forbid you should have a unanimous vote. What a shameful city council we have in the city of Antioch.
I did. I'm sorry. You put in a hold.
This one is from Laura Gilbert. Like many, I was deeply offended by Council Member Turnage's pseudoscientific musings on social media. They bear a troubling resemblance to the sentiments espoused by the man my 94-year-old father fought to defeat in World War II. Yet you defend Mr. Turnage as a nice guy who's been misunderstood. Many people in Germany thought Hitler and Göring and Eichmann and Himmler were nice guys too, jovial sorts who loved dogs and parades and pretty blonde children. It brings to mind Hannah Arendt's landmark treatise on the banality of evil. Letting remarks like these slide is how the unthinkable becomes possible. Laura Roten. Next is from Ron Zaragoza. Dear Mr. Mayor and council members, regarding tonight's city council meeting regarding Mr. Turnage, society has become much too quick to demonize and punish each other. We should not throw stones in the big glass house that we all live in together, lest we be all hypocrites. I say we spend more time and energy thoughtfully and honestly talking and listening to each other peacefully and trying to get along. Thank you for reading and considering my thoughts on this matter. From Jack Bruckman. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I am writing as a resident, homeowner, taxpayer, and voter in the city of Antioch. Our chair of the Planning Commission doesn't get to have it both ways. If I have to watch what I post on social media for work, then he should too, especially if he was appointed to the position to serve the public. Commissioner Turnage's comments about social Darwinism philosophies during a pandemic and international health emergency are abhorrent. These types of views have been shared by nationalists, including WW2 Nazis who believed in the master race. Remember, before they came for the Jews like my great-grandfather, they came for the disabled and the mentally ill. My 84-year-old mother-in-law lives with us here in Antioch. We have been listening to scientists and health professionals, not pundits. If this pandemic is like during 1918, then we will have another devastating wave in the fall and winter. Until we have more testing and quarantine efforts and a vaccine, next message is from Charlene Rednow. Dear Mayor and council members, I am horrified for our amazing community to be represented by and affiliated with the chair of the Planning Commission. Obviously, this man believes in Nazi eugenics. How can we trust him to have our community at heart when he is obviously happier to plan for our deaths instead of our lives? Nazis plan mass graves too. Is that what he wants next? Thank you for all of your hard work and for reading my statement. Next statement is from Jana Rifkin. Hello, I live in Oakley and saw the governor's online note to the public. I am concerned about anyone who disregards human life as unimportant and is in a position that is supposed to care for their community and their well-being. In no way was his message of one of love, compassion, or care for human life. I'm not sure how he is comparing human life in a pandemic to a forest fire. That alone is baffling. I am truly beyond words about how he clearly disregards life, no matter what age or status you are. It's like saying if there is a fire, will you let me die and not try to rescue me because I'm too old or too ugly or too gay? This man is not fit to govern for the people of this town. You can't take these words back and try to say you were being sarcastic either. Please relieve him of his duties to this city as he is not fit, and honestly, this is dangerous to this community, especially to a community of such high risk for this disease. Thank you for your time. The next message is from Beverly Knight. Mayor Wright and City Council members, as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, I was not informed that to participate on boards and commissions for the City of Antioch, you must give up your First Amendment right, the freedom of speech. Nowhere did I say my participation on the Parks and Rec Commission world required that the City of Antioch review and scrutinize my social media pages for posts found to not be in good representation of city government. I would be asked to resign from the commission. As commissioners, we do not represent city government. We represent the community to help inform city government the needs and desires of the residents. Participation on commission is an excellent way for the community to be involved in improving our city. So if at tonight's special council meeting, you wrote to remove Ken Turnage from the Planning Commission because you did not agree with an opinion he posted on his personal social media page, I believe you are infringing upon his right to freedom of speech. The post has nothing to do with the City of Antioch. Mr. Turnage is a lifelong resident and a valued community member who has volunteered countless hours to community events and improvements. Mr. Turnage is a local business owner and proven to be a valuable member of the Planning Commission. If you choose to remove Mr. Turnage, I believe you would be making a bad decision for the city of Antioch. By doing that, you must come up with new written guidelines to inform all commissioners. The next message is from Michelle Kuslitz. Once again, the city of Antioch is trying to punish a volunteer who does not conform to their ideologies or who is perceived as a threat due to great leadership. No, I do not agree with what Mr. Turnage posted on his personal Facebook page. However, Mr. Turnage, just like any other American, is entitled to his opinion and freedom of speech. Mr. Turnage did not express his views as any type of city leader. He did so as an individual. I applaud his honesty about his feelings and appreciate that I know where he stands on an issue. Many folks, especially politicians, would say one thing publicly to appease their audience and say or do the opposite in private. At least with Mr. Turnage, you see what you get. As usual, when a taxpayer/resident of the city of Antioch whose city leadership, both paid or elected, perceives as a threat because they are strong enough to speak out against wrongdoings in the city. Yes, it is no secret Mr. Turnage has spoken out against actions council has taken in the past and is in a volunteer position. They find a way to oust them and try to tarnish their reputation. The same happened to me, an excellent, competent, hardworking, and dedicated volunteer for over 5 years at Antioch Animal Services. When I spoke up about serious concern at Antioch Animal Services, Mr. Harding, the manager, made it his mission to get rid of me as a volunteer. The next message was received as a comment form to remove Ken Turnage. And it says, Ken Turnage II is very sick, despicable being who needs professional psychiatric help at once. I am a senior citizen who, along with so many human beings in any age group, economic class, or social situation, find this complete ignoramus, inhumane remarks repulsive enough to gag a maggot. Send this mentally ill psychopath home immediately. Next message is from Amy Hilton. This public comment is offered against the removal of Mr. Turnage as the chairman of the Planning Commission, as recommended by the city attorney. This is not because I agree with the opinion expressed by Mr. Turnage. I don't. What I find even worse than the comment is the attack on his right to free speech and the implications for a free society without that right. The comments made by Mr. Turnage on social media were done in his individual capacity as a private citizen. He was not acting as a city representative and prefaced the comment with, "This is my opinion." Yet the recommendation from the city attorney was that Mr. Turnage should be removed because his comments do not represent the city of Antioch or the city council. Yet Mr. Turnage made clear that he was not acting on behalf of the city. The city attorney's recommendation contains no mention of Mr. Turnage's actual role as chairman of the Planning Commission, a job for which he is well suited. Only references to undisclosed emails and phone calls, hearsay at best and gossip at the worst. Before the council votes on whether to remove Mr. Turnage from his position, I would remind them that city employees and representatives do not leave their constitutional rights at the door. These rights are sacrosanct and should not only be honored, but the council ought to fight for them. It is our duty to protect those rights for all, the citizens of Antioch, those that are housed, unhoused. The next is from Manuel Sidrian. I believe the agenda has been put forth in retaliation to what Mr. Turnage has to say last month in a podcast, which I agree with, the way his body has handled the homeless situation by the city council. And it's downright despicable that we have such problems on the street in 18th. I believe it's all retaliation. To that, I believe the city of Antioch has bigger problems than this being. It should be looking into a work for housing program for these homeless, the ones that would like to get back on their feet, the ones that don't. We need to get them to move on out of this town. We used to have a law, no loitering. Antioch on a cruise, that's what the police used to tell us, why can't we use the same law in Antioch for these homeless that are doing nothing but stealing and causing havoc? The ones that need help, I say we help them. We do need mental facilities. We have enough vacant properties in this town that we could have housing for the homeless in a program, and I don't mean the mobile homes. Next is from Richard Miller. I have been an Antioch resident since 1986 and really find the need to address this council. The coronavirus statements made by Mr. Turnage are reprehensible, uneducated, and unbecoming of a public official representing the people of Antioch. Please unanimously vote to denounce these statements and remove him from his appointed planning commission position immediately. Thank you. Next is from George Matthews. I am one of the first people to respond to Mr. Turnage. He posted his comments, and I not so gently chastise him for the implication of his comments. Being a public official, he has a duty to filter his personal philosophy, which he failed to do in this post. While what he said was at minimum ill-advised, I do not believe he should be fired for posting his thoughts. His mea culpa should be sufficient, and the publicity surrounding this should suffice as a lesson learned. Please do not remove Mr. Turnage for exercising his First Amendment rights. The next is from Candace Ireland. Ken Turnage needs to keep his position. He's the only one of you with Antioch's best interests at heart. None of the rest of you do. I seriously wonder what your agenda is for going after him. Is you don't like what he has said, ignore it? I can't stand a word that comes out of Lamar Thorpe's mouth, but I don't start a smear campaign against him. Obviously, we should. What Ken said was true. He just put it in words some people found offensive. Get over it. We need his enthusiasm, honesty, hard work, and pride. The city of Antioch needs him. The actual people in Antioch deserve to have him, and he doesn't deserve to have you persecute him because you don't like what he said on social media. Something that has nothing at all to do with any of you or his position there. Grow up. You're the ones whose behavior is disgusting, appalling, and embarrassing, to say the least. I have the utmost respect for Ken. I have none for any of you. I don't before, but this is the icing on the cake. From Patrick Scott. I believe this action is unwarranted and entirely politically motivated, as pointed out in an editorial in the East County Times. Frankly, it smacks of a double standard given comments and social media posts by another council member. Council members are correct in that some of Mr. Turnage's comments are less than politically correct and harsh, but remember, they are his as a private citizen and do not represent the city or the council. It's free speech. If council insists on taking some action against Mr. Turnage, then rebuke him publicly, and in a strong statement, make it clear that his opinions don't reflect the council's view or values, and warn him that as an appointed representative of Antioch, to refrain from posting or saying things that may reflect poorly on the council and his community. Lastly, this is not a political or racial issue and should not be portrayed as one that was presented in one council member's statements. Respectfully, Patrick Scott. From Lisa Wolf. After reading press accounts this morning, I telephoned Ken Turnage at his K2GC company number listed on his website around 11 a.m. He answered, and I asked him if his parents and his wife's parents were living. He said yes. I asked if he would be all right with the four of them dying to cull the herd. He said yes. I repeated the question, and he yelled, "Yes, I am good with that, lady. I don't say things I don't mean. I don't care if any of them die. We have to do this." He then hung up on me. I was shaken and felt like I was going to be physically ill. I hope your city council does the right thing and removes this man from his position. I am stunned that he posted this to begin with, but when he doubled down with me on the phone, I was truly shaken. This is obviously his opinion, and no amount of apologizing or trying to spin this should be allowed as an excuse. People need to be held accountable for their words, particularly in city government. Next is from Michael Pohl. Antioch City Council, I would urge the council to resist the knee-jerk reaction of removing Ken Turnage from the Antioch Planning Commission. I do not agree with what he said, but I do agree with the First Amendment rights of every American citizen to say that they will. My question to the council that I would like answered tonight is, what standard of purity do volunteer appointments have to have? What moral compass must they be forced to say things within? Has the council provided any guidelines or signed documents stating that they can and cannot say? Will you be investigating all commissioners' Facebook pages and start removing them? I can think of one who crosses the line in several nasty posts regarding our president. Why is this Parks and Recreation Commissioner not being treated the same as Mr. Turnage and being removed if the City Council claims it has values? The City Council should be focused on city issues, not becoming the social media opinion police. From Taylor C. Thank you for taking the time to call this special meeting about a very serious incident. Thank you to Council for showing the leadership and commitment to our citizens here in Antioch. I am writing out in support of the council members, neighbors, and others that are calling for the resignation or removal of Ken Turnage from his position on the Planning Commission. His careless words and actions on social media regarding a global pandemic and how it affects our family members and people we know is inexcusable. We all have a right to our opinions, that I do agree with. However, not at the expense of human life. Perhaps Mr. Turnage said these things in a different perspective that he deemed okay. But the bottom line is that it should have not been said. This situation we are all dealing with now will not go away unless we all work together to flatten the curve and care for each other. It will not be solved by deserting our most vulnerable populations and not caring for them, which is basically what Mr. Turnage is suggesting. Someone with that mindset is not fit to represent this. The next is from Lucille Meinhardt. What I am asking you to do will take a lot of courage, dear council members. I'm asking you to preserve a person's right to have freedom of speech. Having reread Ken Turnage's Facebook post that started the controversy that brings you here tonight, I see that he is a citizen supporting and explaining what the country Sweden has done in response to COVID-19. I personally believe it is not the best choice for Sweden and not for us. His post is not racist, nor is it hate speech. We have an unfortunate habit in our country of assuming the worst of anyone with whom we disagree. Ugly epithets, untruths are hurled, and the disagreement turns nasty. Ken Turnage is not the only American nor the only Antioch citizen who thinks we ought to end the shelter in place and who thinks that Sweden has done is a good way to go. His right of center opinion has just happens to be different from the majority, particularly the large left of center majority here in Northern California. Our democracy is built on working through differences of opinion, and it has been this way since we began. Always, however, we have had the freedom to express our opinions without fear or reprisal. Ken adds diversity to. Next is from Desiree Rushing. I'm a first responder as a respiratory therapist. These last 2 months have been more horrific than anything I have ever experienced in my 30-year career. My only response to the Facebook post from Mr. Turnage is all lives matter. The next is from Nicole Gardner. I was truly disgusted by the post that Mr. Turnage wrote. Over the last couple of days, I have been even more disgusted by the comments that he has made to defend his post. I would think that once he saw how many residents his post upset, that he would apologize, but he has continued to interview after interview to repeat the same words that he did in his original post without remorse. I agree with the mayor and the council that he should have the freedom to say or write whatever he wishes to. I also agree with the mayor that our city officials and commissioners need to be held to a higher standard. So he, along with his supporters, need to understand that this is not a freedom of speech issue. We should not have people calling to reopen the government so that we could allow nature to run its course and have people who have strong immunities go out and infect the weak, the poor, and the elderly so that they could die while also representing those same individuals. He has recently made statements that this was not a race issue. I just want to say that once you make a post like... Next is from Joshua Young. I'm writing you in hope that you consider your actions very cautiously regarding the removal of Mr. Turnage from the Planning Commission. Mr. Turnage has served the community greatly over the countless years and the countless efforts to help improve and enrich everyone in our community, and even recognized as Citizen of the Year. We live in a society in which we all have the right of free speech. We may not always agree with one another. However, we have the right to make and voice our opinions. It is your duty as a sworn elected official to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and California. I strongly urge that you defend Mr. Turnage's right to his free speech and no longer continue down this path of censorship. As reported in the news, it has become very apparent that this effort to silence Mr. Turnage and remove him from the Planning Commission is politically motivated. We may not all agree with Mr. Turnage and his remarks, which are not articulated and agreeable, but to insinuate racism of which no evidence of exists, and to have a person removed because you simply do not agree with a private citizen's social media post on a private page. The next is from Warren Lutz. Given the overwhelming cry over his public comments, I am confident that the City Council tonight will find Ken Turnage unfit to represent the city and will vote to remove him from the Planning Commission. In doing so, I trust you will ignore the comments of Mr. Turnage's supporters who downplay the severity of his comments or who attempt to reframe the narrative as a free speech issue, or who try to distract you with false equivalencies and whataboutisms. Or, as I like to call his supporters, the good old boys from East County today, brains gone tomorrow. However, I urge you to go one step further. For the past 20-odd years, Mr. Turnage has been an outside contractor for code enforcement, the city of Antioch. During that time, my own estimate, the city has paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money. That's our money, lining the pockets of a man who continues to hold the sickening and idiotic views that society would be better off if we let COVID-19 kill the most vulnerable among us. Next is from Jay Trizuto. Please, Mr. Turnage comments on Facebook are just opinions. The council seems insincere describing the First Amendment protected post as abhorrent, disgusting, and reprehensible. Calling a special meeting to tell the citizens we made a big mistake, this guy has extreme ideas. What if I told you one person on the council believes they will have their own planet when they die? Does that sound extreme? Fire Ken if you like, but don't claim it's because he is racist or insensitive. Fire him so you can feel righteous. Next is from Colin Gallagher. The proposed removal of Commissioner Turnage for his musings on his private Facebook page runs afoul of the First Amendment as well as Article 1, Section 2 of the California Constitution. Every person may freely speak, write, and publish his or her own sentiments on all subjects. See Garcetti versus Sabelos, 2006, 547 U.S. 410. If the commissioners were a city employee, then the city would be in violation of California Labor Code Section 1102 in discharging him. By this proposed action, the City Council would violate the commissioner's constitutional right to free speech. In our system of government, the principal method for controlling the content of governmental speech is through the ballot box. Vargas versus the City of Salinas, 2009, 46 Cal 4th 1.1. I do not endorse the commissioner's statement, but he should not be removed from his appointed position solely because of constitutionally protected speech. His posting was and did not rise to the incitement of violence against any groups or individuals, and therefore is protected under the First Amendment. As a license, the next is from Lucas Stewart Chilcote. Ken has been active in the community along with being a past president of Antioch Rotary and business owner, but none of that activism provides the get out of jail card to say whatever you want willy-nilly. Yes, we can have political difference, but in his position representing the city, he needs to have some nonpartisan language and a professional image on social media platforms. It absolutely reminds me of our president, DGT, how Trump posts very insane things on Twitter. I ask upon my city council to remove this image we now have. Thank you. From Nicole Sedano. Good evening, City Council. I want to address an issue tonight regarding Ken Turnage. Just because you don't agree with someone's opinion does not give you the right to crucify someone over it. You are all being prejudiced against him over an opinion. Monica Wilson, you should be ashamed of yourself trying to smear one's reputation for your own political gain. You are far from perfect showing up to events, taking selfies just to get recognition. You deflect on other people to hide your own skeletons in your closet. You and Lamar Thorpe making jokes at the Me Too movement and human trafficking events. What happened to the First Amendment and freedom of speech? I believe that you are doing all this because Mr. Turnage was going to be running against you. Let's talk about all the great things Ken Turnage has done. Antioch Rotarian, Antioch Little League Field, remodel upgrades, supports and participates in many community events, and so much more. It is really a shame that you should smear someone with such an impeccable reputation. Next is from Jamie Louise Lawrence. I am appalled that Ken Turnage is being considered for a city council candidate after his posting on Facebook was made public about letting the coronavirus kill the weak and old. I also feel he should be booted off the planning commission. I encourage the city council to take into consideration what type of person would make such a comment. Certainly not one most of us would like representing our city. Next message is from Joe Hayden. This man does not belong in any public office with opinions like that. He wasn't even hesitant to share his ideas that letting the weak and or elderly people catch the virus and thin the herd. He's an embarrassment to Antioch. Get him out of office. From Alice N. It is easy for Turnage, having enjoyed white male privilege all his life, to spew hateful words about allowing the weak, elderly, homeless to die in a pandemic. In this society, we are still confronted with the legacy of centuries of the privileged class enjoying their luxuries by means of land theft, genocide, and enslavement. Turnage's weak, elderly, homeless really translate to the poor and exploited underclass, people whose employers refuse to pay sick leave, those without medical insurance, those who have to work the gig economy in addition to a full-time minimum wage job in order to scrape enough for this area's exorbitant rent. Let's see whether Turnage is willing to stand by his words. He should go forth to a hotspot and let himself be exposed without the protection of the medical grade PPE, which is still shamefully, incredibly unavailable to so many healthcare workers. If he gets sick, no cutting ahead of others for testing or hospital mittens. Confront him with his own words. Next message is from Mark Jordan. I have taken a pause before writing to you. I wish sincerely that Ken Turnage has taken a pause before making his Facebook post. I do not believe that you should remove Ken Turnage from his position with the Planning Commission, as censure is more in order. We must all remember that while many, perhaps a majority, including myself, do not agree with his comments or evaluation, there are many that do agree with him. They just don't say it out loud. That number may be as high as 40% of the U.S. population. Those who obtain limited information from limited news outlets often develop this type of herd opinion. They are simply ill-informed. And that may be the case here. Let's all rise above a moment of heated anger and outrage and allow ourselves a moment of pause. Censure is a more equitable resolution. Next message is from Shar Silva. I am extremely appalled, disgusted, and offended by the racist statement made by Turnage. This man should not represent the city of Antioch. His words are something I expect from Nazi Germany. If he is not removed immediately, this communicates that single one of you would condone his belief system and should all quit and let those that represent all citizens lead. This is shameful and a black mark on Antioch. The world is now aware of Antioch for reasons you should be ashamed of. The world is watching and listening. Do the right thing. The next message is from Antonio Di Giovanni. At one time or another in our lives, we will make a stupid comment and or remark. It is a country based on the freedom of speech. Whether or not I support this man's opinion does not eradicate that he has a right to make that statement. If a president can continue to be president based on the horrific statement that he's made, why should this man, when it's only been one remark? Leave him the hell alone and move on to more important problems that we are facing. I have veterans on your street without housing. They desperately need to be attended to. Could you please deal with that first? BeFirst.org. Next message is from Jenny Osgood. My family has owned property in Antioch since the early 1970s. I was raised in Antioch and graduated from Antioch High School and still own property in town. I find Ken Turnage's recent comments about the coronavirus very troubling. How can a person be a public servant and not care of his own constituents die? Not to mention the elderly and poorer constituents. Mr. Turnage needs to resign his position, and if he continues to refuse to resign, he should be fired. Next message is from Lucas Stewart Chilcott. Ken has been active in the community along with being a past president of Antioch Rotary and business owner, but none of that activism provides the get out of jail card.
Excuse me, Nikki, you've already read a comment from Lucas?
Yes. From Joel Simmons. Good afternoon, Mayor. I hope that you and the City Council will vote to remove Mr. Turnage from his public office position on the city's planning commission and allow him to return to his private contractor practice. His faithful comments indicate that he does not have the right frame of mind to serve this diversely populated city the way the citizens deserve. How far down the rabbit hole does his survival of the fittest ideology go? Will he use his opinion to move towards elimination of plans for senior care facilities and/or medical facilities to care for the old and injured? One can only imagine how he would treat his own elderly parents or his children if they were injured. The next message is from Ken APAC. This is a free country. We have the right to freedom of speech. It is not important if we agree not with Ken Turnage has the right to express his views. I do differ a bit from what he says, but he has a valid point. The old, the sick, and the homeless are a burden to society. The question is, what is a civilized, enlightened society? Is it really like a herd? I think we should help the old, heal the sick, educate the people to convert the burden to an asset, to an advantage, which we are not doing. This is my humble opinion. We should encourage, welcome different opinions, even if they are extreme, hurtful, or unnecessary. A civil society, a real democracy, should encourage an open communication and should not be afraid of different opinions. Next message is from Jan Handel. Ken Turnage is a dreadful representative of the city of Antioch, and more specifically of a decent human being. Next message is from Angela Bybee. As a resident of Antioch, he needs to be removed. Anyone with his views should not be representing all of Antioch. It is absolutely disgusting. Vote to remove him. Thank you. Next message is from Patty Jetty. Please remove him from the Planning Commission immediately. His attitude has no place on my city, let alone any community for that matter. My next question is for the mayor. How did you know that Mr. Turnage had these ideas and beliefs or anything similar, anti-empathetic regarding this or any other matter? Next message is from Igar Regub. I write in support of your proposed action to terminate Mr. Turnage's appointment to the Antioch Planning Commission. As a 7-year member and former chair of Berkeley's Zoning Adjustment Board, I feel that it is important for public servants to comport with a certain standard of conduct, both during and outside of the meetings. I found his comment that we should let the coronavirus kill the elderly, the weak, and the homeless reprehensible. These types of Malthusian theories are extremely dangerous, and broadcasting them on social media is deplorable. Thank you for your consideration, the important work you're doing in the midst of this terrible crisis facing our shared Bay Area community. Next message is from James Patton. What barbarism. I support our council, especially Monica Wilson. Turnage's comments are something you would expect from someone totally lacking in human kindness and empathy, as well as brains. I am 78 now and pay my taxes, keep my home in a way that shows I am proud of our city and abide by our laws. Am I now expendable? Ken Turnage is a prime example of the idiotic way our leaders are behaving. Maybe Ken should skin pop some Lysol. He must resign and our city will become a laughingstock. His Facebook post has already gone viral. Next message is from Sue Q. This person brags publicly that he's involved in a family business, Turnage Construction. Certainly, this 3-generation firm benefited from the different construction challenges in Antioch over the past 25 years. I cannot believe this person is even talking about killing his own parents in a dispassionate way, or maybe it is just on other people's parents. Next message is from Chris Stamp. I know I do not reside in Antioch, but if I did, I would feel betrayed. I have an autoimmune disease and also closing in on 60 years of age. I assumed then, if I had the virus, he would tell others not to waste their time helping and letting me die. If this is so, does he think it is normal for elderly to be killed by who is stronger in health and stature? I believe he has watched Logan's Run one too many times. Remember that Social Security is for the elderly who paid into it and are retired. What he said is hurtful to those with any medical issues. This man would be Trump's best friend. Next message is from Abigail Price. While Mr. Turnage's comments were made on his own time and protected by freedom of speech, they were really sort of Hitlerish. Is culling the herd really something that should apply to civilized humans? Please keep that in mind when deciding to keep him with your organization or not. Cordially, Abigail Price. Next message is from Kirsty Costa. I grew up in Antioch my entire life. My great-grandparents settled here, and we had a family business in Antioch for 62 years. Ken Turnage should be fired. He has shown disrespect for the elderly and what he calls the weak. No one should be in office or serve our community with the worst attitude like that. Next message is from Colin Gallagher. Oh, this is a repeat. We have read that. From Beth Mounts. Good morning. I am not an Antioch resident, yet I shop in Antioch. Free speech is a right enjoyed by all of us. Public servants are scrutinized by their words and actions far more than regular citizens. Public servants serve as an inclusive community. Ken wrote his opinion. What he wrote is not reflective of Antioch. The response to him this evening has to reflect inclusive scruples. Kindest regards. Next message is from Denise Jacinto. Ken Turnage needs to understand that he represents humans in his official planning commission role. It's not part of his job to use his personal opinion to make public his despicable comments on the lack of seriousness of the pandemic, nor to undermine the judgment of the experts who are taking action in our state to keep all of us safe and healthy by informing his constituency of his discriminatory personal views. I dare say that if one of his family members or friends were to become sick and or die from this horrible virus, he would be defending his biased, hurtful, racist comments. That is only if they were old, poor, or homeless. Perhaps only then would he believe their illness or death would be justified. This man deserves no voice to public representation of any matter or manner. He is a disgrace. The next message is from April Myers. I would like to request the removal of Ken Turnage II from his position. I am neither elderly nor weak, but I am immunocompromised and would likely not survive if I contracted the virus. So I do not take kindly to anyone's suggestion that I am expendable because I have lung issues. And I do not believe anyone with his views or voicing that type of opinion should hold any place of power or influence in our community's government. It's disgraceful and should not be tolerated. The next message is from Andrew McCullough. I am an attorney in Utah and in New York. I have relatives in the East Bay and visit from time to time. I tread this man's comments last night. This one really bothered me as I drove home. He really does need to lose his job. Not politically correct, someone says. Not even politically correct in 1843 when Ebenezer Scrooge said the same thing. When asked to donate to ease the suffering of the poor, he asked if there were no longer any workhouses. He was told that some would rather die than have to go there. Here it comes. If they would rather die, Scrooge says, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. This is a man who is universally held up as the worst kind of mankind. Have we not made any progress? From Melissa Marlowe. The outrage I felt reading Turnage's comments on allowing the elderly, immunodeficient, homeless, or other unfortunate innocent people die in the name of economic prosperity is pretty hard to describe. The general consensus seemed to be, please go first with your own family. I'll be honest, the thought crossed my mind as well. This person cannot, in any good community, be in a position of representation of the people. Wishing this level of ill will on our city is reprehensible. I should hope his neighbors run him out of town, not simply off the council. Just please don't send him to Utah. We don't think like that here. Next message is from Richard Dawes. I request the removal of Ken Turnage from his position. His comments were disgusting and showed a complete lack of human decency. I don't wish to have anyone like that in a government position. Next message is from Jackie Dunkley. I believe that Ken Turnage II should be terminated from his position as commissioner chairman because of his appalling comments he made on Facebook. I am the mother of a son who is immunocompromised, who is a young practicing attorney. He has worked many years to accomplish this goal to help people, and to hear that Ken would think of his life as expendable along with others is unthinkable. He should not continue to serve people with these opinions. He's not worthy of the office. The next message is from Robert Matthews. I encourage you to fire Ken Turnage immediately. His comments regarding COVID-19 are beyond the pale. The next message is from Bill Russell. I have followed this story with interest. While I do not reside in Antioch, I am hoping that the opinion of Mr. Turnage regarding COVID and its impact does reflect that of the city. He was breathtakingly irresponsible, and even more stunning now is his inability to understand the pain and insult he has inflicted upon our elderly citizens who have very much of a right to life as he. I doubt that he has the capacity to apologize, and I hope the council will do the right thing for the image of the Antioch and remove him. From Randy Plotner. Dear Mayor and council members, I read the article yesterday about Ken Turnage II and his views about people who are expendable and need to get out of the way to make room for entitled jerks like him. I am a senior, as is my husband. We worked hard for what we have, and we give a lot in return. We are not takers, we are givers. Reading this article depressed me very much. It makes me feel that to some, gray lives do not matter. He is not plain spoken. That was not unfortunate, as explained by Arnie Simonson. Turnage equated old people, sick people, etc. as burden, as forced detritus that needs to be turned to ash. This person should not be representing the city of Antioch in any way, shape, or form. I am not a resident, but I am someone who was deeply affected and became very depressed by his words. My life matters. From Mary Owens. Does Mr. Turnage's recent comments on allowing the coronavirus to run its course accurately reflect the views of Antioch? To say that his comments are abhorrent is an understatement. They are really horrific and immediately reminded my husband and I of the actions that Hitler did in the beginning, calling the herd. We will be watching to see your next step. We hope you will be doing the right thing and remove this racist individual. From Jennifer Kirkland. I cannot imagine a world in which this man would ever retain a position of public service, but one can never tell. At 7 p.m., you collectively are tasked with reaffirming the moral compass of our community. Should you choose to keep this person on, then the stain of his remarks will be embedded in the fabric of your city government. You will be forever known as Hitler's emissaries. Good luck with that. The next message is for Michael Gaddams. Good morning. Please do your best to take the politics out of this situation. We know Ken has done amazing things to help Antioch. I am sure he regrets saying what he did with 2020 hindsight. With these challenging times, stress could play a big role in his Facebook post. Suggestion, I see it maybe turn this into a win-win situation that we can all learn from. Offer to send him to some class on leadership that will help him grow personally and even become more of an asset to our community. To punish him in a public forum, I think will be a loss for all of us. Kenny is a good man. People who know him know his heart and intentions are in the right place. From Jeanette Hickox. I do not believe in your town, yet I am sickened and outraged about a representative comment regarding the COVID-19 virus. This man has not been affected by this virus, nor do I believe this man is educated on the wide range of people, young, aging, healthy, active, and people with underlying conditions. this virus can affect. Being a representative of the people should require some sort of tact and personal responsibility to uphold a level of compassion and censoring of one's own opinions. Comments like this could spread inaccurate information and could end up targeting innocent, hardworking people. I believe this man should be removed from office or put in a position where he is no longer able to voice such irrational opinions to the public. There are plenty of people who are not weak, old, or homeless that have succumbed or have been tremendously affected by this virus. We are not a herd. We are communities that pay taxes, work hard, have families, uphold the law, and care for our elderly. Next message is from Cynthia Fury. He is a disgraceful person to be in government. This is not Nazi Germany where elderly, disabled, sick were shot or killed. His comments was clear. There is no misrepresentation. Do the correct thing, fire him. Deborah Van Osdale, fire him. Robert Avila. As a former resident, I found this person's views abhorrent. I live in the area from the mid-70s to the late 80s. While Antioch has problems, I don't recall such hateful rhetoric as this. I urge you to dismiss this person immediately before he further stains your reputation. I also have serious doubts about the members defending the indefensible. From Mike Turnage. I never heard much about Antioch, but I know about it now. Though through a pitiful circumstance, if I ever heard about Antioch in the future, I hope I can remember it as a city that took a stand on a disgraceful issue that disgraced the city and made it right. From Stormy Weber, Ken Turnage's comments echo Nazi propaganda and are a disgraceful representation of your city. I am a former Bay Area resident who now lives in Seattle and am subject to reading about his disgusting and inhumane comments. He is not fit to lead anything or anyone in any way. I urge you to remove him immediately from any position of leadership. Leaders should inspire and be humanistic, spiritual, and heartfelt. He is disgusting and shameful. Remove him from any official position he holds. Okay, Laura Wooten, this is a repeat. From Robert Michael Jordan. Dear Mayor Wright and Ms. Motz, Mr. Thorpe, Ogerchuk, Wilson, I'm sorry you're probably getting too many of these emails, but if I were you, I'd be embarrassed to have Mr. Turnage on the Planning Commission or in any place that represents the people of Antioch. I understand you're holding a meeting on Friday to decide whether he should be removed or not. I implore you to remove this profoundly insensitive and heartless clod. Ronald Kilcamp. I worked as an ICU nurse beginning in 1981 at the start of the AIDS. During this time, terrible things were said about AIDS patients. I'm a retired senior citizen and at high risk if I were to contract COVID-19. Someday Ken Turnage will be a senior citizen. He should take the opportunity to apologize for his comments. He will live with the regret for the shame he will put upon his family and himself. The internet is forever. You must unanimously dismiss him. From Alma Townsend. Hi all, I'm writing to oppose any wasted time regarding ousting Ken Turnage from city planning. What happened to our freedom of speech? I agree this virus needs to run its course and stop panicking everyone. If it attacked cats and dogs only, I think we would have posted that families and children would be saddened by the loss of a life to their animals. It is no secret that this virus is mostly affected the ones just as Ken described. But to shut the whole country down is ridiculous. Looks like communism in the making. Also, the only way to become immune to this is to be exposed to it and let your body fight it. By the way, many of my friends and I do agree at some point that this virus was planted on us for population control and to help revive Medicare, Medi-Cal, and Social Security benefits. Unfortunately, it got out of hand. No need to take it out on Kenny. The next message is from Gail Hudson. I am so shocked to read the statement made by Ken Turnage. The first thing I thought of was an elderly or disabled person in Antioch reading his words and thinking the city representative feels their life is worthless. I also thought his planning capacity, what decision does Ken Turnage make that are disadvantageous to the lives of the elderly and disabled because of views they are not worthy of the expense? Across our country, there are other examples of this abhorrent idea to divide people. It worked for Adolf Hitler for a few years, but true leadership with vision brings all people together in difficult times. They do not cull the herd of the less fortunate. At the moment, I do not have confidence or trust in the city of Antioch. However, it will be restored if you remove Ken Turnage from your staff. His remarks cannot be excused and will not be forgiven. From Chip. I read this article on my homepage and know nothing more about this situation other than what I just read. I believe everybody is entitled to their opinion. Just because you don't agree with it doesn't give you the right to ask for his resignation. I believe you and people like you in office feel like you can use your authority however you choose. I strongly believe the shelter-in-place order should have been removed many weeks ago. The city of Antioch has few deaths from this virus, and our city is spread out. We don't have a lot of people in a small area. All of the models have been proven incorrect, and this is no worse than the flu, that the data proves it. You and your council should do the right thing and allow Ken Turnage to continue with his duties. I've lived here for 30 years, and the city council can spend their time more wisely than this ignorant with Hunt. From Dale Breyer. I don't live in your city, but I am certainly aware of the disgusting comments your city planner Ken Turnage made about letting the coronavirus kill the elderly, the infirmed, and the homeless. I realize his comment was made on his personal Facebook page. However, when a person steps into a visible public role, he takes on a whole new level of responsibility and accountability for his rhetoric. His comments, which he claimed later were misunderstood, are not what I expect to hear from a public official. In fact, they are reprehensible. If you continue to keep this sorry excuse for a human being in your employ, you become complicit in accepting his narrative, and that will send the wrong message about your city and one with which you probably do not want to be associated. Thanks to Facebook, your city planner's horrible comments have made Antioch famous, but in a bad way. Get rid of this idiot before he does even more damage to your city's reputation, and tell him it would do him get some sensitivity training. Not that this mouth-breathing knuckle dragger will take your advice. This message is from Peggy DeLuna. I have been a resident of Antioch since 1982. I just found out about the Facebook post, Turnage, and I'm appalled and incensed. Aside from the reprehensible thoughts expressed, it turns immediately someone with such common sense and lack of judgment to actually share that on social media isn't a politician in leading the city. We have enough problems with the leadership of the city and don't need a person with his obvious gap in empathy and compassion. I am also disappointed with Arnie Simonson for excusing Turnage's bad behavior. Turnage definitely must go, and I'm not too convinced about Simonson sticking around. Thank you for letting me have my say. From Marietta Elliott. I grew up in the Pittsburgh-Antioch area. This is not an individual we want representing our community. Does this man suffer from mental illness? I simply cannot believe you would want his name associated with your city. His comments are unbelievable, unacceptable, and especially heartbreaking. He needs to go and go now before he can make disastrous decisions for Antioch and put a dent in his reputation. Time to balance him right out of his position. Thank you for your time. From Teresa Cones, I agree with his comments. I am 71 and in good health. If I get this virus, no problem. The homeless would be dead by now if the virus was going to get them. Common sense for the rest of us. This virus could kill you, and so could climate change. There is no one who knows what the hell they are doing concerning this virus. Leave this guy alone. All of you need to run the city, so do it. From Sally Spoon. I read the remarks in the paper by Ken Turnage and was appalled. If you have the responsibility for planning for the common good, how do you do a decent job if you discount a large part of your community? On a personal note, I am a child of a survivor of Auschwitz. My mother's entire family was murdered by the Nazis. Much of my adult life involved rebuilding a family of parents, children, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Now I am 72, and my greatest pleasure is enjoying having an entire family. As a matriarch, I know every member of my family makes the whole. Thirdly, Mr. Turnage's remarks were very reckless. If someone is my age, should we just let them die? Does Mr. Turnage's remarks include our president, Dr. Fauci, Dalai Lama, Mr. Biden, or does he make exceptions? One of our members remarked that he had seen only 3 public comments. Morality is not dependent on public comments. As nation and community, we are facing large problems and need large minds. From Linda Morse Robertson. At age 69, with family members living in Antioch, I cannot express my rage at what this man said about seniors. This piss-poor excuse for a representative is entitled to his opinion, but his callous, disgusting, unprofessional remarks are not fitting to someone who has seniors in his district, nor should they have been made in public. Remove him for the sake of all seniors living in your city. How dare he make comments such as these in public format, one read by citizens, and not be held accountable for such disgusting behavior. I can only assume he is a Republican and a Trump voter. These types of remarks are concurrent with the joke that our nation's leaders, he should not be in any position to decide what is good or not good for our citizens. I am disgusted with the absolute POS. He apparently has no idea how many seniors have allowed him to be elected. Get rid of him. From Mark Coates, Ken Turnage needs to go. I'm 66 years old, so apparently I'm one of the people that should perish, so the world will be a better place. I think not. From Jane Kelsberg. Hello, I am a registered nurse, have lived and worked in Antioch for many years. I am sickened and disgusted by the heartless comments made recently by Ken Turnage. Mr. Turnage obviously is incapable of performing his job with the insight and compassion needed to do the job well, and needs to be removed from his job immediately. From Susan Kennedy and Stephanie Bonham. Dear Mayor Wright and members of council, we were deeply dismayed to read the article about the comments posted to Facebook by Planning Commissioner Chair Ken Turnage outlining his opinion related to COVID-19 and the current shelter-in-place orders. While Mr. Turnage is indeed entitled to his own opinion and his right to express it, as a member of the Planning Commission, his comments reflect on the entire city and not in a positive way. First, we'd like to extend our thanks to Council Members Wilson and Thorpe and Mayor Pro Tem Motz for their comments and genuine concern related to Mr. Turnage's post. Mr. Mayor, we hope that while you called his comments abhorrent and also defended his right to his own opinion, that you and the entire council intend to have a discussion with Mr. Turnage about the fact that as a member of the Planning Commission, he is an extension of the city and, in fact, the council. His personal opinions are now nor just his own, but can be perceived to be an extension of the council and greater city family. The next message is from Christina Burton. Please remove Ken Turnage from chairman of the Planning Commission immediately. He would make Adolf Hitler proud. Out with him. From Shirley Keller. I am furious with the statements made by Antioch's Planning Commissioner Chair Ken Turnage II. As an Antioch real estate tax-paying elderly citizen, I plead that he be fired immediately. His words demonstrate that he's an idiotic moron, should not have any place in Antioch's government. From Steve Saylor, call the herd, get rid of Turnage, make Antioch a better place for everyone, except Turnage. From Susan Kilson, I support Ken Turnage to stay an active member on the Antioch City Council. From what I know of Ken Turnage, all he wants is for Antioch to be a better place for all of us to live. From Ella Williams, I feel threatened by the statements Mr. Turnage made about basically purging the earth of seniors and disabled to do the earth a favor. I'm appalled that Mr. Turnage holds office in Antioch. There is so much hate in those ideas. If we were in Nazi Germany, I could feel somewhat better. Everyone has an opinion, but to have any power in government, believe I and others weaker than you is only a sign of the times. No thugs in the streets do I no longer fear. I see my enemy. Oh boy. Don't see a name on this one, so I will read it out loud. I understand a special meeting has been called tonight to remove Planning Commissioner Chair Ken Turnage from the commission. I can understand why people will disagree with some of these ideas Mr. Turnage shared on Facebook post last week. But I also disagree that it is necessary to remove him from the Planning Commission, where I believe he has been serving the community quite well. I read beyond the inflammatory newspaper headlines and viewed the entire message posting. I saw it not as a desire to end the lives of the aged and infirm, and definitely did not see any racial undertones, but rather his attempt to offer an alternative solution to the pandemic crisis, not unlike what is being tested in Sweden, sheltering the people most at risk and allowing the majority of our population to continue working and keeping the economy going, and allowing our youth to continue their education. Though the near-term mortality rate will likely be higher, it is also likely that the total mortality rate may actually be less over the duration of the pandemic due to the increase in the number of people that would develop immunity, and this would greatly reduce the duration of the event. I also noted in Mr. Turner's post his acknowledgement that even though he did not agree with the shelter-in-place decrees, he stated he was following them. I asked you to consider some lesser action to address the hurt feelings caused by Mr. Turnage's posting. Yeah, take that phone call. I have one message.
At this point, we have a phone call. We're pulling on. This is former Antioch Police Chief Alan Contando. Alan, you're on. This is it. Coming in on a separate email link. So I got to put you on that. Okay, ready? Okay, good. Okay. You're on.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I live?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, this is retired Chief Alan Contando, and I just would like to call a point of order. I've been with the city over 29 years, and during normal council meetings, when there's a full agenda, the actual time speaking can be reduced. But because this is a special meeting with no other things on the agenda, and with 92 people wanting to speak at 3 minutes would put us at 11:45, and we are far below that, I would like to have the opportunity to read my comments, which are 3 minutes, because I did not have any advance notice prior to you making this rule.
I'm gonna put this one to the city attorney.
Is there a delay, or can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Unfortunately, the decision to be made was made at the beginning of the meeting, and each person's been given and each person.
Our city attorney is speaking right now.
Each person's been
I'm not
given.
hearing anything, Arnie.
So we're not able to give him additional time. That would separate him from the folks who have been in 1 minute.
Alan, can you hear us?
Limited.
Did they hear any of my comments?
Yeah. Hold on, Alan. Can you hear the mayor at all?
I'm watching the television, and I can't even see his mouth moving, and I'm not hearing anything.
Mayor, can you hear me? He's limited to 1 minute.
I can hear city, yes. A city clerk let him know that he is limited to 1 minute.
Sorry. Yeah, Alan, the mayor has determined that you are limited to the 1 minute.
Okay. Let me know when my timer started now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'm shocked that we would limit free speech to 1 minute comments when the whole topic is related to 1 minute. As a police chief serving for 29 years in the city of Antioch, I can't believe that we're at this point. Mr. Turnage made his comments from a personal perspective, his personal opinion, and at no point ever made a nexus to the city of Antioch. At this point, on face value, appears as a Brown Act violation by the City Council. They're calling for Mr. Turnage's resignation. Yet at the same time, Mr. Thorpe has, on the story today, ECT has pictures on his Facebook mocking and advocating for human trafficking and objectifying women. He has since taken it down. I would wonder what does it take to, how many comments from the public does it take for the mayor to ask for Mr. Thorpe's resignation? Let's call it what it is, a political attack on Mr. Turnage because he's been critical on the council on many occasions. Most recently, he was vocal about this council not providing more money on Measure W to fund police hiring. And additionally, is politically motivated because Mr. Turnage announced a possible run for city council seat that Ms. Wilson currently holds. A certain facts of the city council are concerned that Mr. Turnage will get Ms. Wilson's seat because in her 2 terms in office, she has done very little and was able to fill her campaign promise of building up Antioch's economic vitality. Ms. Wilson spent a great deal of time piggybacking on the Red Stand project as a police function, combating human trafficking, which Mr. Thorpe apparently thinks is funny. I don't recall Ms. Wilson asking for his resignation, but I guess Mr. Thorpe is not running against her in this election.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. And hope we are going to include your written records. Okay.
Turn it back over to Nikki Mastay.
I do have 8 more comments online. The first is from Joseph Orlaka. I know Kenny Turnage to be a good guy and know many of you do too. Just to remind you of Kenny's strong community service and philanthropic support. Antioch Citizen of the Year, President of the Rotary of Antioch, supports the Rotary of the Delta's Night of Giving, benefiting the Salvation Army, celebrating Antioch Parade. No. Agree with every comment city council members make? Most certainly not. Are the life choices black and white? No. Is the best direction to minimize balance damages wrought by the virus versus those wrought by unemployment clear? No. Do I know best course of action? No. Do you? Suspect not. Should Kenny Turnage be removed from the Planning Commission? Most definitely not. Should you share your views on his comments? Yes. Could Kenny have been more empathetic in his comments? Yes. But again, in spite of his comments, is Kenny Turnage a good guy? Most definitely yes. Next message is from Sandy. I think it is horrible that you are doing to Kenny. I could go through with other council members' Facebook and find things that offend me. It's his opinion. Did he say he wanted people to die? No. Did he say he was going to kill people? No. He said let nature take its course, and guess what? That's what's going to happen anyway. I can't wait till November. I hope he runs for mayor. Next is from Vicki Robinson. I support the decision to remove him from his position, making it clear to him and future volunteers that they must display restraint, discipline, and respect. He must be fired. From James. Oh, there is no notes for James. From James Hilton. No notes for James Hilton. From Nicole Silva. I would like to give my 1 minute of comments to the retired Chief Cantando, not to exceed 3 minutes. From Tom White. I would like to give my 1 minute to retired Chief Alan Cantando, not to exceed 3 minutes. From Melissa Case. I do not wish to speak, but leave these comments for council. If we are going to remove Ken, then I want to remove Sean Wright for overly posting religious items on his Facebook. I also want to remove Thorpe for being extremely rude to me and his racist and derogatory posts brought to my attention by eastcounty.net. From Bobby Lopez. Dear City Council members, Mr. Turnage is your public face for the Planning Commission. Given that the Commission makes decisions on housing, including the potential creation of senior, disabled, and affordable housing for the unhoused, the specter of his bias and whatever he is clearly able to make fair-minded decisions will tarnish the commission in the future. He is a shame he did not step down, but as council, I ask you to remove him for the best interest of the city. Thank you. From Cecilia Meja. Good evening, council members and city staff. My name is Cecilia Perez, and I am an Antioch resident listening to this conversation. I felt compelled to write in because this point is getting lost. This conversation is not about free speech or the community's opinions about Ken Turnage. This is not about vilifying Ken Turnage or the unfair comments attacking the city council. This is about holding city commissioners accountable for a standard of professionalism, compassion, and humanity. This commission serves at the will of the mayor and the council to advise on the city's objectives. This decision is clear. Ken Turnage's behavior demonstrates an inability to represent the values, culture, or people of Antioch. Removing him from this public post is essential for this council to clearly assert the city's moral compass and standards as a city that welcomes and celebrates all. Removing Mr. Turnage from his post does not take away his ability to continue speaking freely. It does, however, take away his ability to do so representing the city of Antioch. We count on your leadership during this defining moment. Thank you. From Jeremy Moss. Mr. Turnage has displayed a type of logic leading us down a slippery slope we don't want to go down. When you scapegoat the drains on our society, you're doing the bidding of whom my grandpa went to Germany to fight. Whether he's aware of it or not is a type of logic that will never fight for what is right. Also, Arnie Simonson needs to go. He approves of this guy and broke the law not reading comments in previous city council meetings. Good night and good luck. I hope Ken Turnage does the right thing and repents. I would happily forgive him if he becomes of a force for good. Everyone makes mistakes, but still needs to be punished until they learn their lesson. Those are all the comments I have this evening.
Thank you very much. This item is now before council. I would open it up for council questions. We have our city attorney here. Questions of our city attorney. Seeing none, I have two questions I'd like to ask Thomas. One, I would like to understand with all the comments that we heard, is this a free speech issue?
What I believe you're hearing from the comments is that what the focus of this issue is not free speech. The focus of this issue is what is the reaction and the impact that the speech has had on the residents of Antioch and the confidence and their trust in the government. I think part of thinking about this issue right now, and the thing that makes it so critical for the government, is that this has incited an impact, and you as policymakers will need to determine what that impact is. But it is not about the plain words that were on a piece of paper. It is about the impact that this is having on Antioch residents and your ability to effectively conduct government within the city. And so I mentioned before that the difference between an appointed public official like a commissioner and a elected public official is that if an elected public official makes these types of statements, there is a direct accountability for the people who elect that official. So elected officials receive their power from the public. And what you have here, because you have an appointed official, is you have someone who is appointed by an elected official. So the public elected the official appointed and approved the appointment, put them in this place. And the reason that's important is because in this circumstance, the individual is beyond the reach and the grasp of the public to hold accountable. And so where you're left is you are left as the city council, which is able to determine whether or not this person will be held accountable and how that accountability will take shape. But ultimately, the position that a commissioner is in is still a position where they got their power through the public, but the conduit was all of you as elected officials who went out there, earned the public vote, and then enabled this person to occupy the position. And you have to decide, based on what you hear from the public, whether or not there's a call to accountability. And that call to accountability would be only yours to be able to exercise, because the public cannot reach this individual. He is safely sheltered and behind the elected officials in Antioch, and only the elected officials can decide how it is that this matter should be handled.
Thank you. I would open it up for comments. Councilmember Thorpe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is an unfortunate situation. It's sad for the entire community, and I know that I first want to tell you that this was not an easy decision on your part, and so to bring us here today, and so you have my support. What I had written out a whole bunch, I written out a whole lot as it related to kind of my experience from 4 years ago. But after hearing the comments and particularly from Chairman Turnage, I wrote down the phrase loss of confidence in his ability to lead. And I expected to hear some kind of remorse as it related to his comments. And granted, yes, this is his opinions are his opinions, my opinions are my opinions, but we still have the public to account to, and the public was incensed by these comments. And so thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for what you just described. And I'm not even going to get into some of the nonsense arguments that were being spewed, because they have no place here. What we're talking about here is life and death, whether or not we as a community are committed to that. And so I'm somewhat insulted by some of the commentary that I heard. I'm saddened by some of the commentary as it related to Mr. Turnage's personal character. I don't believe those things to be true. I had a lot of that written in here. I choose not to read it tonight. I am ready to make a motion to approve your recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion. Everybody would like to speak, I'm sure, but there is a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion by Councilmember Thorpe, a second by Councilmember Wilson. We will continue discussion with that motion on the table. Who would like to speak next? Mayor Pro Tem Motz.
Thank you, Mayor. I wrote down some thoughts this afternoon, honestly, after reading many emails and receiving some phone calls. So I'd just like to share those. It is extremely unfortunate that we are here tonight to discuss the removal of Commissioner Turnage from the Antioch Planning Commission. I would be remiss to not mention Ken's work and dedication to the Antioch community and our local service organizations that support our youth, schools, senior community, and our community celebrations. And for that, I'm very appreciative. The obligation and honor of this council is to serve and represent the entire community. We are responsible for the safety, health, and welfare of the public, and we are accountable to the same public for those responsibilities. This requires a standard of values that encompass a distinct level of integrity, compassion, and fairness, and a general respect for others. Commissioners in the city of Antioch serve the pleasure of the city council. This planning commission plays an important role as an advisory body to the council on planning and development issues. In appointing commissioners, we, the council, place trust in our commissioners to be fair and ethical in service to the entire community. The council has a responsibility to ensure that these commissioners represent the goals and values of the city of Antioch and maintain the same values that we adhere to: integrity, honesty, and respect. It is inherent in the jobs of council members and commissioners that for us to be effective leaders, we must have the public trust. The Facebook post from Planning Commissioner Chair Turnage regarding the pandemic and emergency shelter in place has gone viral. I personally found his post abhorrent, absurd, and devoid of any science, healthcare, or economic fact. This terrible virus can kill the elderly and immune compromised, but can also kill children, teens, and pregnant women. It does not care where you live, who you love, or the color of your skin. We are all vulnerable. It is a terrible virus, and from all accounts, the death is one of untold suffering. This country has spent the entirety of our time on Earth finding ways to preserve life. Whether it be through calamity or research, we have fought for the preservation of life, and it is why we in California have taken the important steps to do everything possible to stop the loss of life from COVID-19. The impact of Commissioner Turnage's statements on his Facebook post have caused unnecessary damage during a time of extreme difficulty for this community and for the state and our nation as we deal with extreme consequences, loss of life, severe illness, economic fallout. Council and I have received many emails and phone calls from all over the United States, overwhelmingly asking for his removal. I think it should be noticeably clear to all of us that the words you put out to the public, even on social media, can have grave consequences. Since Chair Turnage is recognized as a leader and public official in Antioch, I find it difficult to believe that he can continue to have the trust of the public in his duties as chair of the Planning Commission. I unfortunately believe his comments have compromised his ability to do his job, and I have heard nothing tonight that would lead me in a different direction, and therefore, I will support you, the mayor, in your recommendation for his removal. Thank you.
Further comments?
I have a couple questions. Can I ask my questions first?
Member
Okay.
Overton.
So, and I don't think they're legal questions, but it's on the commissions and how do we mentor individuals who hold commissions? How is that done? Is it done?
Who are you asking?
You, the attorney, I don't know. I mean, you bring them forth, you interview them. So do we have a program in place to mentor individuals who hold a commission?
I'll turn that over to City Manager Ron Bernal. Each of the department heads who run those commissions work with the individuals that get on those commissions. So that's the training we also have other trainings that are come on, but I'll turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
That's correct. Each of the commissions are trained by each of the individual departments that represent them. In this case, it would be the Community Development Department. So I'll ask if the Community Development Director, Forrest Ebbs, could explain the type of training that's occurred with this commission particularly.
Thank you. The Planning Commission has a training budget, and in the past, we've sent planning commissioners to the Planning Commissioners Academy, which is sponsored by the League of California Cities. It's a dedicated, usually a 3-day conference, and they cover everything from what it means to be a planning commissioner to planning law, and it's a very beneficial thing. We had a couple of members attend this year because it was in Sacramento, and that's the most popular training. Anything else beyond that is usually very kind of technical planning oriented training. But I would say that the Planning Commissioners Academy is it's my preference for training for the Planning Commission. Okay.
You know, a lot of comments have been made about the reflection of the comments that Chairman Turnage has made on his social media page. And I know they brought up the free speech issue, but do we share with them, I mean, that this is a direct, they're an image of the city of Antioch, and what they put out on their social media page is something that will affect the entire city and is represented, and it shows on us as a council because we appoint them?
So we as staff do not have that conversation with individual planning commissioners. Again, the types of training that I just described, that is, social media is a big deal now in, as you know, elected official circles and also in appointed official circles. So there's opportunity to learn and sort of embrace what the current expectations are.
Okay, I have concerns. I mean, this whole thing is very disruptive to the city, and the council and how we do our business. And the chairman, Turnage, he does volunteer his time within the city doing projects such as the Little League fields, which he just finished up. He is Rotarian and he does a lot of good work through the Rotary. He's been the MC of the 4th of July parade and other parades. He gives freely of his time and his talents and his funds. But with that being said, in reading his Facebook post, when I read it, you know, the first thing that Chairman Turnage started with, and he even said so himself when he started this conversation, was this opinion will not be popular and could easily anger some of you. So if you are the type of person that only values your own opinion, you may not want to read this. He knew his comments when he made them, and he knew it would offend some people, which he led them to believe if you don't want to read it, turn it off, which did not happen. I think the comments that Chairman Turnage did make, they were very insensitive and callous, especially towards the elderly. Most of the calls that I've received, excuse me, were from the elderly, some of whom have health issues. They don't feel that they want to be a burden to anyone. So I truly don't believe that Turnage would know the impact of his words, the severity of his words, and that they would, how they would affect the city and individuals. Those are my comments at this point.
I hate to intervene, but those two statements that you just read indicate that he did know what the impact of his statements would be. And they're sort of testimony in writing that he was aware of what the impact of the statements would be.
It would be for those that don't want to read it. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to read it. You're right. But he did have the opportunity to tell you not to read those comments, read his comments. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I support your motion to bring this forward, and my comments have not changed since last Tuesday, so I support that you've brought this forward.
My comments tonight, and I will read them. As individuals in a democracy, freedom of speech of individuals is held in high value. We are here tonight because city officials are held to a higher standard. When our words as public servants undermine the city's overall position and cause the citizens to lose confidence in us, especially during a pandemic when people are losing their lives and families are victim to illness, it is something that must be examined. As the mayor of the city of Antioch, I want to say to every single citizen that you matter. We need to let you know as council that you matter, that our citizens matter to us, that your life, your job, and your business are important to us. We will continue to work hard to keep you safe and to support your businesses. We cannot ignore that the world is facing something that we have never seen before. The only way out of this crisis is to support one another with our words and our actions. And with that, I will, unless there's any other comments, I will call to a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I understand, the motion is to make a recommendation to remove Commissioner Kenneth Turnage II from the City of Antioch Planning Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Good. Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Thorpe?
Aye.
Councilmember Ogerchoke?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Motz?
Aye.
Mayor Wright?
Yes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion by Councilmember Thorpe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ogerchoke. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all very much.